We want to welcome all of our participants. To those on the East Coast, a good afternoon. Those in the Central and Western time zones, a good morning. Those who are watching from Israel, from Europe, a good evening to you. We have some very significant updates, particularly on the northern border, both what's happening in southern Lebanon as well as what's happening in northern Israel, literally over the last couple of hours. Today, Major General Nadav Padan is going to be addressing these issues, as well as a number of very, very significant issues that have been happening over the last couple of days. Major General Padan, thank you very much, and thank you for the briefing.
Sure. If I have to generally speak about the situation right now, although everybody speaks about respond to the Iranian attack, we'll still have to remember that our main strategic goal right now is to win the war in Gaza Strip and bring back the hostages. That still is the main goal, the main mission of the IDF, while trying to keep the other border, the other arenas out of this conflict, or keep them under the threshold of war, I would say, more than under the conflict, because we are in kind of war, if you will, with Hezbollah along the border with Lebanon from the very beginning of this war in Gaza Strip. What happened the last day in Gaza Strip, not only that that Hezbollah participated in a way or pays share during the major attack of the Iranian, he continued with keeping or trying to push the borders, the limits of the conflict along the Lebanese-Israel border. The last few days after the attack, last 2 days after the attack of the Iranian, Israel been able to target two leaders of the special forces of the Iranian, the commander of the east side of Radwan and the commander of the west side of Radwan, both in level of colonel, brigade commander, if you will. And as a response, which was obvious to occur, the Iranian, the Hezbollah started targeting the Meron Mountain, the air control base at the Meron Mountain, and then launched attack toward the villages along the border. Today we had, unfortunately, casualties, mostly from drones. It's a drone that built inside Lebanon by Hezbollah, short-range drone with warhead for less than 20 pounds. And they target IDF bases and the village of Aram, which is Bedouin's village, by the way. Part of this village serving the IDF as trackers. Other lives in Israel as Arab Israelis. They are actually very close to the border, the west side of the border, and those drones hit the community center of this village and severely wounded two citizens of this village and wounded others, about 5 or 7 of them. Those drones are hard to tackle. It's difficult to intercept them because they are short range drones. You don't have a lot of time to deal with it, and also flying very low, very close to the ground, across the border. And you have to remember that Arab al-Aramsh houses are like 30-40 meters from the border. That Israel doesn't have any tactical depth in this part of the border. And again, unfortunately, we suffer from casualties today along the border. And as I've been saying again and again and again, it's just a question of time. Most of the weapon that Hezbollah launched toward Israel since the beginning of the war are statistic weapons. So those rockets that hit the cities of Kiryat Shmona yesterday or other places could hit the side of the road or the center of community. It's just a question of statistics. Part of the weapon are accurate weapons, like those drones that have been mentioned. And hits of this community center in Arab al-Ramshe was well targeted. It was hit by accurate weapon that aimed to hit specifically this building at the village. Speaking about the other arenas, we continue to launch raid and strike into Gaza Strip while most of the forces are out of Gaza. The last few days, there was raid and strike focused at the center of Gaza Strip, at the camp of the center of Gaza Strip. And we'll start moving forward with the planning and the messages to the Palestinian people about starting a maneuver in Rafah. So people at the south part of Gaza Strip got a message that we're gonna maneuver into Rafah, and they'll do good decision by moving out of the city and move to the refugee camp along the shore. Although for now it's kind of advice and not a military aggressive movement. When it comes to the Iranian response to the Iranian attack, to be more correct, we're trying to find the right balance here without, de-escalation the whole Middle East, without losing the achievement that we achieved by being part of the coalition led by the U.S. And by the way, without getting into a minefield, I would say that significantly part of the Western Axis, or the moderate countries that sees themselves as part of the Western Axis, participate in this response or this defense operation. Each country with its own a way. And I think that we should look at the advantage of the position that the Iranian, in fact, put himself in by strengthening our contact to those Western axes. So when we're speaking about respond, and we mentioned yesterday or on Sunday that the opportunity to stand in front of Israel, we have to keep in mind whatever we're going to do to not de-escalation the Middle East and keep the significant achievement of being part of the Western coalition at the Middle East. Because from strategic point of view, we have to make sure that two things going to happen. Immediate response should deal with changing the equation that the Iran tried to build right now, that said that if Israel will attack our means or our strategic means in the Middle East, including proxies, we could respond from Iran, directly to Israel. This is not acceptable. And the other thing, which is from long-range perspective more important, is to build the strategic response to Iran, which is certain the Western axis, the relation between the U.S. or under the umbrella of the U.S. with Israel and the other moderate country. Normalization agreement with Saudi Arabia is treat Iran better than a missile that hit one of the bases inside or the area of Tehran, because that blocked the effort to control the Middle East. I'm not suggesting that we should not respond by force or militarily against Iran. I'm just trying to set the priorities in a way that will understand exactly what the U.S. tried to convince Israel to do, because it's not only that the U.S. are just telling us to keep calm, avoid the de-escalation. It's trying to build or to develop the relation. And what happened during the Iranian attack 2 days ago. By the way, with huge gap between what happened and what you see at the media. I mean, the biggest gap is Turkey. while Turkey compare Israel to Hitler regime and to Nazis at the parliament, Turkey played a significant role during those days. Turkey was actually the one that spoke to the Iranians and sent the U.S. or the Western messages, and explained to Iran that if they're not limited their attack, it would be unacceptable. And Turkey is part of NATO and has got the biggest military at the regime. So there is diplomatic thing behind the radar, behind what we hear and see at the media, and we have to understand that although the stomach tell us to attack Iran immediately, there is other things that this system and this equation, and not to mention the Passover and other things that are part of the context for the decision makers in Israel. And just to remind ourselves, we spoke about 3.5 option. The half is the combination between the three. One is to deal with it only diplomatically, by strengthening our relation with our neighbor, by pushing the UN and other countries to recognize the Revolutionary Guard of Iran as a terror organization, by launching a sanction toward the Iranian missiles program, and so far and so on, and by bringing back the nuclear issue to the table, which gone for the last few months. The other option at the other side of the spectrum will be launch a strike, direct strike to bases in or strategic means in Iran itself. And the third one was to attack Iranian strategic means at the regime through attacking the proxies in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, Yemen, and other places. And the half, as I mentioned, it's a combination of the three. In no matter what can be the decision of Israel, we must strengthen and keep our relation with the U.S. because we need the U.S. for everything. Sometimes we forgot it. It's not only about another shipment of ammunition that's right now, or today Biden published a paper that is forcing the House to vote for it to support Ukraine and Israel. And he again spoke about his obligation to defend to the defense of Israel. But we need those relations to fight Iran, to fight Hezbollah, to fight to keep the fighting in Gaza Strip, to coordinate future peace, to create normalization with our neighbor, to keep our international relationship, and for better at the UN Council. Look, we have to remember our size and to which coalition we want to be, or with which coalition we want to be part of. So it's quite a complicated decision. In any case, I think we'll coordinate with the U.S. The U.S. not going to support a direct attack toward the Iranian, but they could accept it. So all the spectrum is open. The fact that the U.S. are not publicly supporting the direct attack doesn't mean that they won't accept it. We should think what the best way to achieve those two goals, or the main goal and the after effect of the attack. The main goal is to change the equation at the Middle East. So we have to send a message directly to the Iranian without breaking what's been built by the American and by ourselves during the last days of the war.
So General Padan, we have questions for you on all three areas of the briefing. I don't know if you have a pen and paper. Should I give all the questions at once or do it one at a time?
I'm with you. The best, but The worst case scenario, I'll ask again, what was the question?
Okay, so on the Rafah briefing that you shared with us, question is this. I assume there's a slow movement of population starting to move out of Rafah towards the Mediterranean. Are there any indications that the Hamas, which still has infrastructure there, has the four battalions, that Hamas is threatening the people from exiting Rafah, that Hamas is either hurting the people, killing the people? That's question number one in terms of the exit of the civilian population. Question number two in Rafah is, we have read material that Israel has perfected some of these artificial intelligence, where as people exit, they have images of the face of the people that are leaving. They can determine, who has a terrorist background, who's a civilian. Those are the Rafah questions. In terms of the Hezbollah, could you share with the participants a little bit about the uniqueness of the community that was struck just hours ago, in terms of their role with the IDF, in terms of the fact that even though the government had asked for a evacuation of northern communities, of which the Jewish communities of the north all evacuated, what's unique about this community? If you could share with the participants. And then the question for the third area of the briefing, specifically the issues related with Iran and associated with Iran. Over the last, it could be more than a decade, but over the last many, many years, there have been joint operations in preparation for such an attack, known as Juniper Falcon and Juniper Cobra, between America, between Israel, and possibly between others. Can you share with us, give us a little insight into that joint cooperation, the preparation that's been going on for years and years that ultimately prevented what could have been massive, massive fatalities, massive destruction of infrastructure on Saturday night? If you can give us a little bit of an insight into that working relationship and how that relationship prevented what could have been very significant. Thank you.
Sure. So I'll start with the third question about the Arab al-Ramsha at the northern border, and then go to the first question about Rafah, and end it with the cooperation and the missile defense program that were built over the year of the U.S. About Arab al-Ramsha, it's a Bedouin community along the border, like all the communities along the border, like all the citizens of Israel. They've been ordered to evacuate. Because of their tradition and their culture, they decided not to evacuate. If the majority of the people that lives in the Jewish community evacuate and only few stayed, in Arab al-Ramsha case, it's upside down. The minority of the people decided to evacuate, and the majority, over 70%, stayed at a village. They are not leaving the ground. That's part of the tradition, and therefore, the fatality of this attack today caused those amount of civilian injuries. If it would hit the kibbutz Hanita close to the Arab al-Ramsha, it probably would have hit an empty house. Not only the houses are not empty in Arab al-Ramsha, the community center that had been hit were active. People went after school and gather in this community center and have after school classes there and so on and so on. So this unique community doesn't leave the ground. And as been mentioned, part of them, they're all citizens of Israel, and part of them are serving in the IDF as a tracker or in other jobs. I've got a lot of friends that serve with me in the IDF that lives in this Bedouins that lives in this village. About a question of Rafah. Yes, the Hamas trying to keep the people of Rafah as human shield, like it tried to keep the people of Gaza City as human shield at the time where we maneuver into Gaza City. The ability of Hamas today are not as good as they used to. Most of their structure have been destroyed, and part of their activists and the leader are not willing to sacrifice themselves like they sacrificed themselves at the beginning of the operation. So yes, they are doing effort to keep the people in Rafah as human shield with limited successes. Taking in, keep in mind that that evacuation didn't start yet. We just suggested the people to evacuate yet so far. We just offered them the opportunity to evacuate to camp along the shore. The operation that actually forced the people to leave, to evacuate, didn't start yet. So we'll know that the answer about the efficiency of Hamas while it will start. About the sense of the ability, IDF have ability to sense and to identify biologically the people that cross the checkpoint of the IDF and places that are under inspection or cameras. It doesn't cover the whole strip. So there is places that you actually can smuggle or bypass those checkpoints or bypass the sensor that can identify, and so we don't see everything, but while they're crossing our checkpoint, we have information about who is passing without having to ask them for IDs, generally speaking.
And those structures are set up for when people will evacuate Rafah. That kind of biological identification probably will exist there.
I don't want to get too deep into the details, but I would say that we didn't went back to take over a Shifa hospital again just because we saw people. We had some notion and ideas who's there, okay? And I'll leave you with the thought. About the last question that deal with the missile defense program. Israel for years developed a missile defense system. It started over 30 years ago, and more effectively the last 25 years. At the beginning, it was a mutual development between the U.S. and Israel, which developed a local defense system that protect Israel. Since Bush the son, when Bush was the president, we've been forced by the U.S. to be part of the regional missile defense system that start developed and launched by CENTCOM, the American CENTCOM at the region. And we didn't want to at the beginning, but thank God. And the U.S. have more wide and better strategic vision for the Middle East at the time. And since then, we start develop missile defense system with the U.S. and as part of the American concept of regional defense at the Middle East. So when we developed the Arrow 2 and the David Sling and Patriot combined into the system, and the Iron Dome, it was part of regional concept. The U.S. not only spoke about technology, but create kind of operational connection between their allies at the region, at the Middle East. And we used to practice those relations every year, at least twice. You mentioned the Juniper Falcon, Juniper Cobra. We practice by under the leadership of the U.S. those kind of relation, and into this kind of connection, the U.S. connect other Western countries, and we saw them 2 days ago, speaking about Britain, French, and others. So more than, I would say, 8 countries were involved in the operation 2 days ago. And this connection, trained again and again and again by the U.S. So somewhere at the U.S., at the headquarters in Tampa, the headquarters of CENTCOM, they had a real-time picture of what's going on in Israel better than most of the people of Israel had.
That's fascinating. I'm going to ask you a question. We asked this question on Sunday, but we're going to ask it in different words today. If we could go back a number of years, you had these Iranian cruise missiles traveling over 700 miles with direct strikes on Saudi Arabian oil fields, Saudi Arabian airstrips, runways. And there were Patriot missile batteries in Saudi Arabia, and yet they couldn't stop it. But here you had over 350 missiles, UAVs, different types of attack missiles. And there was such a radically different success rate on Saturday night in terms of what was happening with Israel relative to what happened when Iran struck Saudi Arabia. Can you frame for us, can you explain for us, why the difference?
So there is a lot of differences. First of all, that the strike toward Saudi Arabia was a surprise. And in that case, we were ready for it. In our case, the case of 2 days ago. Second, the range is shorter. So operationally, from the time that those cruise missiles been launched from Iran to the time they hit the target, the time is almost a half. And more importantly, we learned the lesson from the attack toward Saudi Arabia. And in our case, the combination between most of the tools that participate in defending Israel were a lot better. And there were a lot of American technology participate in this operation. We don't mention the F-35 with the radars that flew and tackle and hit the drones. Part of the drones being tackled by an intercept by Patriot missiles, American systems. A part of the drones been intercepted by air-to-air American missiles from American jet and others. So the combination and the ability to share information, connect between the participant, the countries that took part of this coalition were a lot better today in this operation. And I don't know if our audience understand the complexity of operation like that. We're dealing with over 300 missiles and drones that flying toward Israel. There is our interceptor that flying toward them. There is jet that flying in the air that have to be out of the range or out of the targets of the Iranian missile and our interception missiles to operate and to coordinate operation in those scales with so many participators. It's a huge operational challenge vis-a-vis command and control. And what CENTCOM been able to do 2 days ago, it's amazing. They were not ready to do same kind of operation 5 years ago when the Saudi Arabian were under attack. And thank God we are in different kind of situation after all the exercise that been mentioned, and after Israel, by the way, formally become part of CENTCOM in 2 years ago. So.
But just before we ask the last question, for those participating, when Major General Padan refers to CENTCOM, the Central Command, as you know, the American forces across the world are broken up into certain command centers. There's EUCOM, which is the European Command, the Pacific Command, etc. The Central Command, of which Israel has become part of, is the Arabian Gulf, is the Middle East, etc. And then before we ask the last question, there's going to be a special briefing Sunday for all of our participants that will deal with the story of Passover, the history of Passover, and its relevance for today, specifically in today's world. We have a unique briefing. We had one of those on Purim itself, the story of Mordechai Esther, the last time that Israel dealt with the Persian Gulf and dealt with a major Persian empire. This time, it's a little bit of a different story, but it will hopefully be very meaningful and very relevant as Jews across the world observe the Passover. The last question, and I don't know if this is something that can be discussed or whether it's classified, but not so much the cruise missiles, the other missiles, the UAVs and other ballistic missiles that Iran shot at Israel. In terms of altitude, the altitude that they fly at, in terms of what area of the atmosphere of the Earth, and then the jets that are targeting those. Obviously, some of them were targeted by anti-missiles, either David Sling Arrow, by Central Command anti-missiles. But the altitude that jets fly at, are they hovering above those missiles? Are they below those missiles? And again, if this is classified, please don't answer.
I'll try to answer it without getting into complicated details. I would say that if the drones and the cruise missiles flying close to the ground in the lower tiers, the ballistic missiles sometimes getting out of the atmosphere and going back to the atmosphere close to the target. Our defense system, covering all the layers, including out of the atmosphere, that the Arrow 3 anti-missile system developed and planned to intercept missiles out of the atmosphere. That's the whole idea. It's kind of satellite that hit missiles, that intercept missiles. So we have technology to deal with all the layers, from drones that flying very close to the ground, to cruise missiles, to different kind of ballistic missile. And when we're speaking about long-range ballistic missile, in most cases, the ballistic journey go out and in of the atmosphere. So Israel and the U.S. multi-layer system cover the whole range, from out of the atmosphere to very low drones that fly close to the ground.
And then I guess the last question is, if it's something that can be discussed, the percentage of those missiles, ballistic missiles, drones, cruise missiles, that were precision guided, meaning the precision guided capabilities of the Iranian attack force.
So I must tell you, for me, it was amazing and very good surprise, the percentage. Over the years, when I participate in those discussion about our ability, we spoke about lower percentage without mentioning numbers. 99%, it's amazing, amazing success. Amazing, by all means. I mean, every professional that looked at this operation, for most of the Western countries that deal with the challenge of missile defense, it's kind of a historic point from technology and from operational perspective. It's a huge, huge success. I wouldn't, without exaggeration. Has been mentioned before, huge success in defense is not a win. It could create a strategic space and time to make the right decisions, but and confidence with our ability to defend ourselves and to respond, to keep our interests. But defense by itself, it's not a solution. It's only part of it. And we have to remember it while celebrating those 99%.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that briefing. And we want to, again, wish all of our participants an early happy Passover, a meaningful Passover, those who are celebrating with their families, with friends, and to the people of Israel, that it should be a safe, secure, meaningful Passover. And that, please God, we won't have a situation where the soldiers will be called up, but those who have come back for a little bit of relief, a little bit of opportunity to reunite with their families, they can have a meaningful holiday with their families. Major General Padan, thank you very much.
Thank you, and happy Passover.
Thank you.